Okay, welcome back to the Normal Sports Show. My name's Kyle Porter. I've got Jason Page here as always. Jason, how we doing?
Fantastic. Good to be here.
And we've got Sean Zock, not Zach, of golf.com. We just had a long conversation about last name. You guys have some tough last names at golf.com, not in terms of how they look, but just in terms of pronunciation.
Totally. It's spelled Z-A-K and it's not Zach, right? My coworker Dylan DeChair, it looks like Dethier. It is pronounced DeChair. But if that's the worst thing going at golf.com, I think we're doing all right.
I wish that he had just come on the Full Swing stuff and been like, it's DeChair. Like, just to end all of the consternation for the next however many years.
Yeah, instead he just became known for explaining what the cut is constantly. The cut. And that's one of our favorite bits at golf.com is just having Dylan kind of re-explain that to us.
It was such a funny, like, I don't know if I don't know how all of that was produced or shot or anything. I was not involved at all, and probably maybe you were more than I was, but they just kept going back to the point where, like, even people who didn't follow golf, you're like, okay, I think it would have been weird. Like, I always watch the F1 version, right? And it would have been like them explaining, I don't know, like a lap time or something like a pit stop, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, here's what happened. But they did it every episode. You're like, okay, I get it. Like, it was so strange.
Yeah, I think that's what you get stuck doing when you are thinking about the Netflix audience and the modern like viewing patterns, which is like you have to say things out loud verbally to make sure that it like really resonates with people who might be staring at their phone, or, you know, when you're trying to cover this golf season and you're spending like 1.5 weeks with Saith, it's like that might be a week in which Saith misses the cut. And so you really got to explain the cut. You know, there's a little bit of like difficulty in telling the total like golf ecosystem, but yeah, it's a good bit now.
Where do you land? This is not part of, we're going to get into 5 questions I have for you. This is not one of them, but where do you land on just the idea of when you think about your own career and storytelling and writing, and you do a ton of stuff for golf.com, podcasting and video stuff and kind of the multimedia things that we've all gotten into. Do you have one person in mind that you're talking to, writing to? Do you try to write to somebody who's never heard about golf before? What are you thinking of when you're thinking of audience?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think when I'm writing, I actually am writing for my deceased grandmother, which will sound weird, but she was a journalist in Wisconsin. She worked at a newspaper called the Oshkosh Northwestern, and she would read everything that I would write. And, you know, it was something that we bonded over, but I knew that there was going to be a lot that she didn't understand. She was not a golfer, but I think because she read so much, she kind of got clued into things. And I knew that if I could explain it in a way that it would resonate with grandma, then it was going to absolutely register for everybody else. That said, I think I'm probably like the nerdiest golf behind the scenes structures of like tour golf person at our company. And that leads me into like financial documents and legal documents and some of that stuff. And so at some point, I am just trying to take some really muddy things and explain them for probably the common sports fan at that point, which is a much worse answer than like grandma, but it is also true. Like the last 4 years have been a complete exercise of, wait, what is happening? And how do you explain that to the people who like kind of just care about the birdies and bogeys?
I listen, Jason knows this about me, but I listen to the Acquired podcast quite a bit, and they, you know, they tell these histories of places like, they've done Trader Joe's and Coca-Cola and Costco and Rolex and all these different places, which is a lot of like oral, there's books about it, whatever, but some of it is what you're describing, which is sort of the nitty gritty, like, could you, what's it called? Freedom of FOIA, like,
yeah,
to get
Freedom of Information
like,
Act.
Yeah, to get these emails that so-and-so, you know, like all that stuff. Where did your because I don't love that stuff necessarily. I love it when somebody like you finds it and tells me what's going on. But where did your sort of curiosity around some of that, like in the weeds stuff, come from?
I think it is completely because it is a market inefficiency. In the people that discuss and contribute to like golf journalism and golf media are probably not ultimately that interested in finding those things, because there's some hustle, right? Like, last week I was diving into the weeds on why TaylorMade is suing Callaway, because of its, the amount of paint that is being put on golf balls and what Callaway is doing in the marketplace as a result of it. Yeah, it's totally sick, because I think, frankly, like if we want to use those golf companies as an example, like they are trying to market something to you and me every single year when it comes to a golf: balls, wedges, irons, woods, and drivers. And that takes a lot of work on their behalf. Some of it's BS, like some of it is fluff. And I kind of like, as a consumer, want to wade through the BS and be really smart from that perspective. Yeah. But then as a storyteller, I also kind of want to understand, like, what are the like machinations happening behind the scenes? And you can apply that to live golf, which a lot of live golf is bullshit, right? But a lot of it is also what you and I would do if we were tasked with creating a golf league. And so yeah, I think it all is a bit of a market inefficiency where I can be like the storyteller who actually knows what happens on page 4 of the Live PGA Tour lawsuit, and explore, like have that be my asset, and then use that to be a much better storyteller in the ways that everybody's doing it.
What did you read growing up? Like, what books did you read? Like, I was like, were you a Hardy Boys guy? Like, what's the?
I was really into like the God, I'm forgetting what they're called now. Eventually, I got into the Hardy Boys for sure, but I think any mysteries, like I continue to read Agatha Christie because I think
Encyclopedia Brown. Was it Encyclopedia Brown?
No, but like, I mean, there's so much of the Agatha Christie collection that is like still untapped, and some of it's like extremely basic, written for a very basic audience. The fact that we could read it when we were maybe young but still tap into it now. I read one last year which has, perfect for this episode, like a tennis and golf theme. Like a tennis racket is involved. I forget what it's called. I think it's like something like Approaching Zero, but yeah, tennis racket is involved with the murder mystery. And yeah, it's a good question. I was not into your Harry Potter stuff or Lord of the Rings or like kind of sci-fi things. A lot of sports and then a lot of mysteries.
Yeah, that's sort of, I kind of was too, sports and mysteries. I was Hardy Boys. Matt Christopher wrote a lot of sports books that I read all the time. He was a fantastic writer. Joe Posnanski actually profiled him in like the early 90s or late 80s or something like that. It was I just found it like 2 years ago, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, this is the guy that I grew up reading, and probably informed a lot of the ways that I think about sports or write about it or consume it or whatever. But yeah, Encyclopedia Brown. I was never I'm with you. I was never into like Harry Potter or anything like that. I've gotten into it as I've gotten older, as my kids have gotten into it, so I read it to them. But
oh my God, yeah. I had an ex-girlfriend like force me into watching from start to finish all the Harry Potter movies. I'm like, this is an incredible story. What kind of absolute lunatic could come up with this? Someone with imagination 10 times greater than mine, and it is so impressive.
Well, and I think you would appreciate the books also because it's not, you read them and you're like you and I, when we read something, I think we probably both say like, I think I could have written that. And then there's other people that write and you're like,
no chance.
I can't do that. I think of, who's the, the Every Day Should Be Saturday.
Spencer Hall. Yeah.
Spencer Hall. Yeah. He writes in such a way that you're like, nope, can't do that. Brian Phillips from The Ringer, can't do that. And so, but Harry Potter, you read it and you're like, I think I could have written that. The problem is like the world building. You're like, I couldn't even come up with like, the first like the first part of that, and she's like already, Phil's 34 chess moves in to like how the worlds interact, and that's the part that's extraordinary to me. Okay, I didn't bring you on to talk about Harry Potter, although we could.
I will connect this to golf. My affection for mysteries. I'm gonna try. I think I've told myself I'm gonna try to write one someday. At one point I had a goal to write a book. Did that. Everyone's like, "Well, are you gonna write another one?" It's like you really need a good idea to write a book, particularly one about real life. And I have told myself that my path to writing a mystery novel will take place in Wentworth, because I spent one night in Wentworth. This is where the DP World Tour is headquartered. This is where Rory McIlroy now lives when he's abroad. I basically, this is to make a long story as short as possible. I went to like a Team USA basketball showcase in the summer of 2024 in London, took a really, really late train back to Surrey and to Wentworth, and had basically a 25-minute walk through this super rich, super quiet, super wealthy gated neighborhood to get to Wentworth, where I was spending the night. And I was so scared because it was so dark and it was so quiet. And I'm looking at every one of these houses and there's just enough light on them. And I'm like, one of these houses is Rory's. This would be an incredible place for a golf-based kind of murder mystery. So that's something I've convinced myself, and sometime in the next 10 years we'll get there.
Have you seen the Knives Out movies?
Yeah.
I just got into those. I watched the first two. The first one's amazing.
There's something that attaches that to the true crime fascination of our modern world, that it's going to make the owners of Knives Out, the director of Knives Out, like millions and millions and millions of dollars, because we're a species that are obsessed with true crime. And, if you fictionalize it, any world is the world that you can exist in. People are going to be attracted to it.
Well, and the thing that they do, and I think this is where, at least what we're trying to do at Normal Sport, and I think a lot of what like you and I, like our generation of golf writers has tried to do is like not take it all too seriously. Like Knives Out is like kind of in on the joke a little bit. Yeah. But it's also like super interesting, and you're trying to figure out how, it's a whodunit, but it's like not overly serious, which I think is like kind of a cool trick to pull off. So anyway, okay, Sean, you once asked me one of my favorite hypothetical questions of all time, which was, I think we were at St. Andrews or somewhere in Scotland, and you said, I don't even know if you came up with this, but you said, how far back would you have to go in time until you could win a major championship? And but the gambit is you get to keep, like you being the person receiving the question, you get to keep whatever's in your bag right now. So the equipment that's in your bag right now. And the farther back in time you go, everybody else has to use whatever equipment that is. So like if you're playing Corey Pavin in 1990 at the US Open, I get my, irons and driver that are in my bag from 2025, and he's using 1990 equipment. So I'm curious about, I can't even remember what your answer was. I think my answer was somewhere around 1900. I feel like I feel confident enough that I could hit driver well enough. I wouldn't have to chip a ton. I could kind of putt around. I'd probably have to win an Open where I could kind of putt around everywhere. But where did that question come from, and what was even your answer?
Yeah, I think it came from one of our like tour confidential things at golf.com, which is just a weekly roundtable in which we ask 5 or 6 questions and kind of throw things against the wall. But my answer, it being a 7 handicap, you can really try and deduce where you would rank in history. It's like, all right, 7 handicap, that means like on my best days, we can shoot 75, 76. On my worst days, we're shooting 87, 88. And so like, in order to win that Open championship, we gotta shoot we got to shoot 477s. Okay. That puts us at like roughly 5 over par each day at the old course. All right. Did anybody win an Open at 21 over par?
But you also
I
have
think
to,
somebody
you
did.
also, you also have to think like you're playing it from like
Their
the courses you're playing right
distances.
now are probably
Yeah.
65 to 7,000.
Mm-hmm.
And so you got to take it back to where, okay, when did it play at 6,000 or whatever? And so you can
Yeah.
maybe shave a little bit off there.
Yes. So I think I deduced that anyone who won an Open, again, this is exclusively that tournament because that one was played so far long ago. I think anyone who won an Open at 12 over was in my sights. I was getting after them. So I think that puts us around the century mark.
Can I give the scores there for the 1900 Open at St. Andrews?
I would love nothing more.
Do you guys know who? Do you know who won that one?
Horace Rawlings.
Willie Anderson.
No, there were a couple Willies on the board, but J.H. Taylor finished with 79, 77,
Did he
78,
become president or something?
75. J.H. Taylor.
So JH, we're going to remove him from the history books, and 2025 Sean Zock is going to
There you
be
go.
an Open
One-time
champion.
major winner.
I think you guys aren't taking into account the course conditions back in the day, or the course management, or also the role that fans had watching the game. So they could also like step on your ball, I think, back in the day, and you.
Yeah, those elements about like putting around someone who's got you dormy, like
Yeah.
that kind of stuff.
Stymied.
Excuse me, not dormied. Yeah, I mean, I think it would take me, let's say that if I started in like 1898, I'll win it by 1900. I'll need a couple under my belt. Like we're not doing this
Yeah,
in the
I
first
think that's
time.
fair.
I mean, if Willie Park Jr. is not in that number one spot, he's definitely trying to sabotage you with stymies like all over the place. There's no doubt about that.
I don't think I could ever have won the Masters. I have played Augusta National in the media lottery, shot 95. I wrote a story about it. It's out there. I played it from 6,500. Even if I don't know that it was ever played at less than 6,500 in the actual tournament, but even if it was, maybe take a couple strokes off. Maybe I'm a little less nervous. I put together like some 88s, 80. I mean, I don't think I couldn't have ever won the Masters. It would have to be at an Open.
At some point, Gene Saracen is getting after you. And it's like,
Oh, yeah.
that's Gene Saracen, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So no chance there. Okay. Let's get to my actual questions for you. I was enthralled with the Australian Open. I don't know if you were enthralled with the Australian Open, but I do know that there have been times over the last 5 or 6 years where you have just been like very into and kind of enamored with tennis. And you know, the thing that I find very interesting about tennis is something that I find very interesting about golf, which is that my gaze, my vision, my like who I'm rooting for is always drawn to somebody, depending on who's in the mix or who's playing in the tennis match or whatever. And I realized this while I was watching, Sean. Anytime Alcaraz was playing, even if he was playing Djokovic, who I really like, I would watch Alcaraz the entire time. Like even when Djokovic was hitting, I'd be watching where Alcaraz was going. And in my head, that's who I want to win. That's who I'm rooting for because my eyes are always on that person. And I do it in golf too. And it's a little subconscious. Maybe it's conscious. I don't know. But I'm curious about who that is for you in the tennis world and kind of what your just experience with tennis has been over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, that is a good question. To start with my experience on it, I have really taken to it because I've just been playing recreationally, which is something that I hope works for people in the golf world. It's like you start hitting the driving range, you pick up a golf club. Hopefully you would start to care about Scotty versus Rory. But that is kind of the baseline of it for me. Is it is such an incredible sport, such a chess match. It is so similar to golf in a lot of ways, and it's a great workout. Like, you know, if you want to go play 1 hour of tennis, you will be beaten down by the end of it. And I think that that's where it all begins. I went to Wimbledon a couple years ago, and that experience also,
cool.
yeah, you know, like you hear about it and you see it, and it strikes so many of the same chords as the Masters, but it's like way more open to the public. You can literally sleep in the field and earn a ticket that way, which is what I did. And from me to the wall away from Frances Tiafoe was one of the coolest sporting viewing experiences I could really ever have. And that was on court 2, not to say anything about court 1 or center court. So I think having some of those life experiences pull me into the tennis world made me start to really care about, obviously, Frances, the Americans, Taylor Fritz, and then like, why can't these Americans beat these Europeans? You know, I think it makes me a little sad that I wasn't super into tennis during like peak Rafa, peak Roger. But what is so amazing is that we did get to see in the last 10 years the peak of someone who can be considered better than them. And so like it has been a very good moment for me to get into tennis, and I feel bad for the people who maybe are missing it, because I mean, it's a perfect background sport too. Like particularly Aussie Open, or when they go to Roland Garros, like that'll be in the background on Tuesday when you and I are locked in our computer, and then Chris Fowler will get all excited about something that Taylor Fritz does, and then you know it just sits there in the background and grabs your attention. So to the question about who am I attracted to, I don't think I have a complex or like even interesting answer, as much as it's like people that make you feel something. And Alcaraz is the like leader in the clubhouse, Mount Rushmore of tennis players that make you feel something. Agassi used to do that for a lot of people. Sampras to a far lesser extent, right? Because he was just this powerful force with a lot less emotion compared to like Andre wearing jorts and like having crazy hairdos and all that stuff. But that's why it's probably really hard to get on the Sinner bandwagon, because his tennis is freaking incredible. But he doesn't really make you feel that much.
It's a little like Scotty, right?
Yeah. Long and languid and just there, a force of nature. And so I would like for him to, I think he's starting to branch out and be a little bit more emotional with his on-court stuff. But the other answers would be exclusively people that make you feel something. You know, I of course, like when Tiafoe has made his US Open runs as an American, super fun to get into that. Like I watched him at Wimbledon, and like Queen Latifah showed up to court 2 to sit like across the way from me, like same level, whatever. And it's like,
that was why she was there, to sit across from you.
She was there, yes, to sit across from me, but also to like obviously cheer on Frances. And people that have that kind of cultural power, like it exists in the corners of the tennis world, and that's who I'm drawn to. Like at some point, Tsitsipas is a name that people in golf probably don't recognize, but like he is a bit of a, this will sound really damning, but like a complainer, like histrionics, like Patrick Reed-esque. Like he would have said, not the various allegations, but he would have said something the likes of, well, I guess my name has to be Jordan Spieth to get that drop. Like that is something that he would have said.
My name has to be Daniel Medvedev.
Medvedev. And like another person that makes you feel things, like on-court antics that make you feel something. So that's kind of where that all lies. But that said, when I'm watching a tennis match, I'm definitely not focused on one side of the court like you find yourself drawn to. Like, I think I'm thinking about how can I hit a shot like that? It doesn't matter who's hitting it. And that's because I'm like just way too competitive with myself and kind of like really drawn to that sport, and also not that good at it. Because it's like
it's so interesting, and we're going to get into a little bit more of how like the crossover with golf. There's a lot of normal sport stuff, honestly, with tennis also, just from watching the Aussie Open. And I mean, Sinner's cramping, almost falling over, and then it gets too hot, so they close the roof and he wins, and you're like, what? Like that's such a weird, like, it would never happen in football or basketball. Because it's like mostly an outdoor sport. It's turned a little bit indoor recently with everybody building the sort of retractable roof. But there was a number of normal sport takeaways I had from the Australian Open. But I think what's really fascinating about tennis compared to golf, and this is where it gets a little bit difficult to compare like Tiger and everybody loved to do the Tiger and Fed or Tiger and Djokovic, whoever, Scotty and Sinner, or Scotty and Alcaraz, or Rory and Alcaraz. But the really interesting part about tennis is that it's as if golf was match play, but also you were playing not 18 holes, but like 118 holes. To where, and what I mean by that is like there's so many people have Kevin Moore, who does the Bag Drop with Matt Considine, the New Club guys. He sent me this post one time, this mathematician kind of breaking down how tennis is, especially the 5-setters, are so long that the favorite is almost always going to win, even if they're 1%, 2%, 3% better. And so it gives you an appreciation for when there's like these huge upsets where like Alcaraz gets beat or Sinner gets beat or whoever, because it's like that's actually way harder to do than to beat Rory or Scotty over 18 holes. Because 18 holes is such a tiny, it feels like a lot, but it's actually a very tiny percentage, where if Rory played almost anybody in the world over 1,000 holes, he would win.
Yeah.
But if you played him for 2 holes, you might have a chance. Whereas you played him for 200, you have absolutely no chance.
I would love to play Rory for 2 holes. That'd be so fun.
But the Australian Open did the 1-point slam. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Golf should have that.
I just feel like if you bring a tournament to any of these places with 2 courses, have the first hole on one of the courses be the 1-hole slam, the 1-hole major, or whatever. Yeah. And I think what was amazing to me about that was just the true buy-in. And I don't think it took that much, but like, my gosh, the players looked like they were having a fun time with it. Yeah. And there was no egos bruised by it. If anything, it was like someone probably felt much better about themselves having taken part in it. And if golf could grab some of that secret sauce, it would be entertaining. And let's do it with Wesley Bryan.
What were you were gonna say, Jason? Don't they do this at the KLM Open?
Yeah, they've got a long history of like letting amateurs come up to one of the par 3s and just try to hit the green first off, but then try to get within the pro. So it's pretty great. But I think it could be expanded over like a par 4 or par 5. That would be fascinating.
Yeah, and they put like $1 million on the line, which is like cool because one, I mean, they're making, and this is where the majors could easily do this. Like you put $2 million on the line and you get I think the example I used was like the Metropolitan Amateur Champion from New York this year to play a 1-hole match at Shinnecock or whatever. And now all of a sudden, like $2 million is one, like pros would show up for that, right? And two, that would be life-changing for an amateur. So it's like that'd be like
who would win though? Kyle, if you did this, who would end up winning it? Michael Block. that is 1000% what he would do, and it would be absolute theater for us.
But why don't they do something like that at the Waste Management? I mean,
they did. Remember at the PGA they did the like the long drive deal, and guys were like complaining. It was just it almost seemed like a halfway. They got halfway there, but it wasn't the full thing. I don't know. It's also harder because 1 point in tennis takes like 30 seconds, and playing an entire hole in golf takes 15 minutes or whatever. Yeah. So it might be harder to broadcast. Okay, Jason, today's episode of the Normal Sports Show sponsored by Turtlebox. Turtlebox has been a sponsor of ours for over a year, or for about a year now, and they're awesome. I feel like since we've partnered with them, they've just blown up. I see them everywhere. My friends are talking about them. They've been fantastic. They actually sent me something to unbox. They overnighted it. Thank you, Turtlebox. It is a new. It's not a new device. It's not a new. There's no. They didn't come out with like a new speaker or anything, but it's a new color, which I'm excited about. So.
This show is now an unboxing show for everyone watching and listening.
If Topps or Panini or anybody's listening, I'll take boxes of baseball cards. I would love to unbox. I'd probably actually bring my sons in to do that. So yeah, I don't know I did pre-open this time because last time was a disaster trying to get it open. So yeah, here we go, Jason. I'm going to unveil it. I guess you can see the color right there.
Oof.
Beautiful.
That color.
This is the Turtlebox Ranger. It's a new yellow that they've got. The official name is Fighting Lady Yellow, which is fishing terminology. I didn't know that. Normal sport. And the color, it's this thing in fishing. It earned its reputation for durability. And if we're tying it to golf, I think I would call that that color somewhere between Open Championship leaderboard yellow and the color of the flowers that make the logo at the first major of the year yellow. I don't know if we're allowed to say that name, but I think everybody knows what we're talking about. But the actual color is Fighting Lady Yellow, again, which is a nod to Turtlebox's roots. They started on a sailboat deck, which I don't know that I even knew that. And this colorway is available in both the original and the Ranger. This is the Ranger, again, for a limited time. So get yours before it's gone. Thanks to Turtlebox. This is a great addition to my collection. And actually, I've been using it for, we put a ping pong table in the garage, Jason, and been throwing it out there. The boys' baseball team was over the other day, a bunch of 12-year-olds, just ton of energy. And we threw on some music out there and played some ping pong. So it was great.
Doesn't get any better than that. Yeah.
It doesn't. It really doesn't. So thanks again to Turtlebox. We love partnering with them. Their stuff is great, and really love this new color, limited edition. So go grab one today. Okay, Sean, I want to show you this. This is my second question for you. I want to show you this chart that I made. I put it on Twitter, so maybe you already saw it. But yeah, and we'll put it on screen for people that are watching. But essentially, it is everybody who. Not everybody, but most of the best players of the 20th century in golf and in tennis, and their sort of path to multiple majors. And I started thinking about this when Alcaraz won the Australian Open to get to 7 at age 22. It's his age 23 season. He'll be 23 in, I think, May. He was born the month I graduated high school, which is very tough. And he is currently, if you're looking at this chart, outpacing everybody else on this chart is Scotty, Rory, Sinner, Tiger, Brooks, Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, Phil. He's won more majors at a younger age than every single person I just listed. The only one that's close is Nadal, who won, I believe, his sixth in his age 23 season. Now, Alcaraz still has 3 more to go, so he might be up to 8, 9, or 10 by the end of his age 23 season. But yeah, what stands out about this chart? I know people on Twitter were complaining, big shocker, about you can't compare golf and tennis. I totally get that. I just wanted to sort of combine these and think about the historical implications of it.
It makes me wonder what Tiger would look like if Tiger was playing match play in every major.
Dude, totally.
I'm not sure if that's actually in his favor or not in his favor. Because I think he could have gotten bounced on, the Friday round in which he shoots 70 instead of 68. Yeah. With all due respect to Carlos, well, we'd be freaking out if that pink line was a golfer. We would be losing our freaking minds.
Oh,
so I think I want to be respectful, but I just can't look at anything but Djokovic in his 30s. Mm-hmm. I can't look anywhere else. And obviously he gets to the highest number here, so that'll grab your attention. But the steepest part of his career was in his 30s, 30 to 36. And the steepest part of Carlos's career, obviously, is to date. The steepest part of Nadal's career was in those early 20s. Same for Federer. It's an active of something that I can't quite place that that Djokovic was able to do what he did for that stretch of time. And I think the reason why he probably isn't as appreciated, or maybe people would look elsewhere on this graph, is just kind of how he carried himself publicly, a little bit of the attitude and public demeanor that he had. It was probably akin to like what Tiger Woods was like, frankly, the kind of like, I'm going to be a cutthroat, ruthless winner, and you're going to have to deal with it. What's great is that I think he is being softened recently in the same way Tiger has been softened recently, which is like, yeah, I was a cutthroat killer. You all have to respect me, but I also am a human and I want to give back to this whole thing.
No, totally. He's turned very likable, and I was thinking about him even when Justin Rose won Torrey last week, and you're like, man, it's one thing to Tiger's career has been amazing, and I don't ever want to disparage it. It's been extraordinary, but I think Justin Rose was number 34 in the world the fall that I entered my senior year of high school, and he's number 3 right now.
So what year would that have been?
August of 2022, he got to 34 in the world.
Oh.
And my point there is like sort of the same as it is with Djokovic, which is this, and Phil too. Phil made me think about this at Kiowa. Just this idea of longevity being, it's not as awe-inspiring, but in some ways it's more impressive. You know, like Tiger's 2000 or 2006 or whatever is more awe-inspiring. You look at the runs that he went on, you're like, this is stupid. Like, this is crazy. But to do it for 22, 23 straight years, in Phil's case, 30 straight years, you're just like, that is, I don't know if it's harder, but to me, it's no less impressive.
Well, and I think what's cool about that, I agree, is that it forces us, maybe in hindsight, to really take a note of what was happening in the minutia during it happening, which is like, okay, so Phil, yeah, he had his 20s when he wasn't winning any majors, but the reason why he was able to win a major after 50 is because of his swing, right? The length of his swing, the smoothness of it, maybe the fact that he wasn't this bodybuilding type of guy interested in becoming a Navy SEAL. Like, that is part of Phil's acumen that helped him. And I think it only became most clear when he has that triumph at Kiowa. All the while, someone like Will Zalatoris is breaking down because of what his swing has done to his body, or Jason Day had his back break down. Like, if anyone, like maybe it'll take 20 years for us to really study what really, like, you know, speed training, what that really did to the body, in Bryson even breaking down from it all. And Phil, I'm sure Phil has done a variation of speed training, but it all made sense within what was like a perfectly long, languid swing. And that's why there's that golf saying, right? Long swings, long careers. It's a beautiful thing when you kind of put it on this, though, because it's like, gosh, what we would think about Phil is if he just won a couple more when he was in his 20s and when he was in contention at Pinehurst, stuff like that.
And it makes you wonder about the Rory thing, right? Because, you know, Rory, I think in a lot of ways I've said this a million times, but is having Phil's career. And Rory's a little bit more violent, I think, with his swing than Phil was. Not like Tiger, but more so. I think he's had a few injuries related to that over the course of his career. But you're like, okay, I wonder what if Rory's just having Phil's career and he just banked a couple extras, you know, early, like in his 20s. I don't think Rory will end up with the 3 or 4 more. We're going to go through that exercise here in a second, but it's definitely in play. I think the thing that sticks out to me on this chart, by the way, is Fed was my guy. Like, I loved Fed, as most 40-year-old men that were kind of contemporaries did. That we were always drawn to Federer. He was just so beautiful to watch, and just he was extraordinary. He was mostly done winning by age 31. He won, I think, 3 more after that, which is not nothing, but it's not a ton. And Djokovic was like just getting started at 31. He won 10 more after that. Nadal won, 7 more after that, after age 31. So I think I thought of Fed's career as being just as long as those guys, and it was, and he was great until he, you know, turned 39, 40. But Federer or Nadal and Djokovic definitely did more major or Grand Slam winning after, you know, for a much longer period of time. than Fed did. In a lot of ways, Fed and Tiger's careers kind of mirror each other.
Well, the other thing too, I think you got to look at when you look at this chart is that the guy in, lime green and the guy in, the darkest shade and the guy in, I think the softest or darkest pink, we're all playing each other. And there was a sacrifice to all of those vectors going upwards. And the sacrifice at times was the person in green was sacrificing for the person in dark pink, or also someone who wasn't listed, Andy Murray. Like, he's the sacrificial part of all of this. And you really don't have that quite as much in golf because there's a bunch of one-time major winners, but it is hard, I thought of this because last week Djokovic during, which was a lovely, potential swan song for the Aussie Open, he still was himself, and he still clapped back at a reporter who suggested that, like, early in your career, you were chasing Fed and Nadal, and now you are chasing Jannik and Carlos. And because, Djokovic is who he is, he overreacted to what is the absolute truth. Like, that is true. It was a good question. I think it was said actually in a respectful way. But, the Aaron Rodgers in him was like doubting the question before the reporter could even get it out of their mouth. And what I just appreciate about that is that I think maybe my reflection of Djokovic is that he is going to have been able to take majors, Grand Slams from Rafa and Fed, and he is going to have been able to take them from Carlos and Jannik. And like, that's actually the greatest testament of his skill set, is that, like, because Carlos plays different than Fed in so many different ways, and Djokovic could beat both of them. It's like having a golfer that can win on every surface, that can win in any era. And frankly, like, that's who Rory thinks he can be, is he can take majors from Scotty, which he hasn't done yet necessarily, but also could take majors from I don't know, Ernie Els.
Well, I mean, Phil's first major, 2004 Masters, he beat Ernie Els by 1. Phil's last major, 2021 PGA Championship, he beat Brooks Koepka by 2. Brooks Koepka and Ernie Els are like 30 years apart.
Yeah. And so who are we going to say that? Like, if Rory picks
20.
one off at 43 and he beats Luke Clanton by 2 strokes, and then Rory's first major win was the US Open at Congressional, and I couldn't tell you who finished second, but I could tell you, like, who was a player at that time is probably Jim Furyk, or Webb Simpson or whatever. Those are some of my favorite, like, just kind of dumb little exercises, which, like, they're not dumb, but they're just kind of goofy. It's like, well, and Bamberger will put this in some of his writing, and it's like, well, Jordan Spieth's 2016 Masters dinner had Doug Ford, in attendance, and Doug Ford played in the 1950 Masters, and he beat, Claude Harmon and Claude, it's like, we can go back in time with this sport, unlike any other sport, and you can connect Spieth's greatness to Sarazen's greatness. And I think I really mean that. I don't think there's another sport that can do that.
Yeah, it's cool, and I think that's part of the reason I've been drawn to tennis. I've been listening to Andy Roddick's Served podcast, which is a little bit the No Laying Up podcast of tennis, I guess. I think I don't know, I'm not deep in like the tennis podcast game, but I've always liked Andy, and he's made the point that, like, the history of tennis is modernizing in, like, significant ways. And there's a really interesting article about this Australian Open that I'm going to put in the newsletter, I think on Friday, about what they're trying to do to modernize and bring everything into like 2026 and 2027 and beyond. But there's this tie to the history, and this is all sports, but I think you see it maybe most prominently in these individual sports. There's a tie to, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, and even more so with golf. I mean, we're just talking about the 1800s and playing the Open Championship in Scotland. And I think that part of it, I think you and I are aligned in that we're both for whatever reason, and like very fascinated and enamored with that history, and not just for the sake of being historians, but for how it connect, like how you connect like the modern players to that history and what that means. Do you have the 2011 U.S. Open pulled up, Jason, to see who finished second?
Yeah, I have it. I was just trying to find the oldest guy in the field, but
it's somebody. I remember it being somebody like prominent or funny or something, and I cannot.
That's a pretty good.
I cannot.
He's a fashionable guy, pretty cool, stylish.
Rick?
No.
You call Rick a stylish guy?
He would have been like 19 years old.
He's stylish still today. Let's say he's a trendsetter.
Adam Scott? No.
Luke Donald?
Well,
Jason Day.
there you go, Jason Day. Yep.
Yeah. Damn.
Jason Day. I remember Kiowa in 12. I believe it was David Lynn was the runner-up. Like eight back or 7 back or something like that.
And Lee Westwood, tie for third with Robert Garrigus, Kevin Chappell, and Y.E. Yang. Yeah, classic.
Of course.
I'm sure there's some olds in that leaderboard if I really dug a bit, but yeah.
Okay, third question. Sean, you recently went to Dubai and profiled Tommy Fleetwood. One of my favorite things that I've read in a while. It was very, very good. Very, I thought you threaded the needle of like writing it for your grandma, but also writing it for me, who knows way more than I should about golf and about Tommy and about all these different things. I said this publicly. I also told you privately, like, I think your ability to write profiles is off the charts. It's really, really good. And I was just curious about, you sort of write about like, here's what I learned from being around Tommy, or talking to him or whatever. Was there anything you picked up off camera just for like, because for people that don't know, there's like so much downtime when you're doing things like this, that you are just talking about soccer or talking about your kids or talking about your whatever. Was there anything you picked up from him that you learned about him or about yourself or about golf just from the way you guys interacted in that time?
Well, thank you for that compliment earlier. I really appreciate that. This is the best access I've ever had to like a top player. And so I kind of preface it all with that because he was interested in having his story told, and his wife is also his like managing agent. She was also interested in having Tommy's story told, which is like the starting point for everything. And so
why do you think that was? Why were they interested in that?
Well, they understand that 2025 was the best year of his golfing life, and they're okay with leaning in to having someone tell that story in a major way. Now, there are commercial boosts to be had from going on the cover of Golf Magazine and having us like spend a lot of time with you. They can see that, I think, too. Like, I think they just understand the medium a little bit. Tommy has his own YouTube account now, and when I pitched it to them, I was like, look, guys, like, you understand YouTube. We want to devote a 25-minute video to Tommy's story in YouTube. And I think the other reason why, Kyle, frankly, is like, I told them we want to go to Dubai and we want to go to Southport. Like, I've been to Formby Hall where Tommy grew up playing. So we actually did go to Dubai for a week, and then we flew to Southport or Manchester area for like maybe 2.5 days. And then we flew home. And so it was a little bit of a circuitous thing. But I really believe that there are layers of Tommy's story that can be applied to everyone, but also like you got to zone in on those things. And so he has 2 homes to his golfing career. It's the one that he currently has, which is in a dome in Dubai, essentially, and it's perfect and it's glitzy and it's filled with money. That's where pro golf can take you if you're as damn good as Tommy Fleetwood is. But you don't get there until you have your second home, which is your initial home, which is like the grit and grimy, like duney, rainy Southport of England. And so I had kind of all that in my mind, I guess, when I was pursuing this. And what I learned from Tommy, hopefully, I can't underline this enough. I've been on the job now for 12 years, and I have never, ever come across a top player who was more interested in the people around him than Tommy was. And my gut is that's what happens when you are raised in, a very probably lower middle class neighborhood growing up, a little bit grimy on the like rainy coast of England, northern England, all these different things that are just going to build humility within you and an appreciation of your surroundings. And so I spent 3 hours with him on the 17th tee box during a sponsor engagement day, which is 3 more hours than you probably get with most people for this engagement on top of a photo shoot.
Yeah.
And that day, his phone was turned over on the table. And I know I wrote that in the story, but he was asking me a lot of questions about me. He was asking the photographer who was not working with me. They were working on behalf of DP World. The photographer had all these questions and Tommy's asking him about his son. And then each group that kind of came through, they of course have their own questions for Tommy, and he is interested in how they're playing and what kind of club they're choosing and what their round has been like so far and who their favorite soccer team is. And my existence around pro golfers is it builds sympathy for how many people want to shake their hand and take a photo with them every single day and have a various 30-second engagement. Tommy is interested in those being more than 30 seconds. And I think that that's just incredibly rare for a top 5 player in the world. He's way more interested in making them 2-minute engagements in which he can learn something about them. And I think that has stuck with me so much. And I think it has to come from how he was raised.
It's such a unique thing, I think, for anybody, not even somebody that's famous or a professional athlete I encounter people every day that and some of this I do because I just have gotten accustomed to it because it's my job, where I just, if we have a conversation, I ask 95% of the questions, right?
Yeah, same here.
We all talk to people like that, and you leave that conversation feeling okay, that was fine, and I learned about them, and I'm grateful for that. But I didn't feel a kinship because I don't really feel like they cared about me or what I am about or interested, which is totally fine. I'm happy to be that person that asks the questions. But when you find somebody, I remember one of my really good friends now, this was probably 6 or 7 years ago, he walked into this kind of group setting and he was the one asking questions of me, of everybody else. And I was like, oh, wow, who's this guy? I feel like this is usually what I'm doing. And it really drew me to him because of that curiosity, because there was a humility there, which I think is what you get from other players when they talk about Tommy, or when they talk, or not just players, but people in golf, when they talk about Tommy. It's man, I'm very drawn to him because he is the way that you're describing.
Yeah, it's amazing that he's got to be the most beloved, I think, player in the top 10. And it's amazing because he's won one PGA Tour event and it was against 29 other players. I think his caddy is extremely beloved. He might have the cutest kid out there, running around, Frankie Fleetwood. He's got a lot going in his favor. But he, I think another big theme of the story was obviously just that he is not afraid to talk about it. And he's even told me stuff off the side where, it was just even more forthcoming than he was in some of his post-loss, post-choke interview sessions. It's just how much it felt important to him to say things out loud. Not every player is that way. Colin Morikawa is certainly not that way. He would be probably the polar opposite of Tommy on this. But I just am tickled by the idea that he got something out of that. We, as the viewing public, got a lot out of it, understanding the human nature of being a pro golfer. And ultimately, he got what he was looking for, which was the comfort that it takes to win in contention. And I don't know if it set him up to do more of that in the future, but 2025 was just such a lesson in all of that.
I remember, I think it was Canada right before LACC. So 2023, was that the Nick Taylor putt?
Yep.
And I remember, I think it was an interview with Tommy later on, maybe it was on the No Laying Up podcast, and he was talking about how coming down 18, he was thinking about what would Tron say if he won the tournament. And you're like, first of all, like, that's hilarious. But second of all, it's like super relatable, right? Because you're like, that's probably what I would be thinking about, you know, like just an idiot golfer. And yeah, he just seems like a normal dude, and not just a normal dude, but somebody that's like curious and thoughtful, which is not just rare. It you know, professional sports sucks that out of you, but I think it's rare for people in general to be like that. So
it does suck it out of you. I think if you happened upon Tommy in a pub and he was by himself, he would be talking to the bartender. You know, he would not have his face buried in his phone. You'd be 3 bar stools down, and by the end of the night, you'd be sitting next to him, kind of deal. Which is so warming. I think that's kind of the point.
And it's what people want when they root for athletes, for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Two more for you.
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Jason.
That Tron quote is so funny in hindsight, knowing that a month later he flew to the Open Championship at Liverpool when Tommy had a chance of like bringing it home. It's just
so maybe that's
just
why.
An all-time moment.
We understand.
All-time moment.
Maybe we understand why Tommy's thinking that way.
Yeah. Maybe. It's so good. Okay, 2 more. Sean, you've covered LIV as well and as deeply as anybody. Obviously, there's a lot going on right now. Brooks is back on the PGA Tour. Patrick Reed is going to be back on the PGA Tour. He's on the Euro Tour right now. Phil and Westwood and a couple other guys are not playing in Riyadh. Bryson's on Animals talking about how he's maybe out. Like, there's just a lot going on. And I think I want to do an episode over the next couple of weeks of like, what are the most likely outcomes for, or what are the potential or possible outcomes for LIV? But in your mind, what is the most likely outcome over the next 2, 3, 4 years for the LIV Golf League?
Good question. I think that's changed in literally the last 3 months. The last 1 month, month or two. I think the most likely outcome is that LIV has another 3 years in it. And that might sound super disparaging and doubtful. But just taking note of everything, it has become cool, if you will, to spurn LIV Golf. Eugenio Chacarra is doing it publicly. Patrick Reed, Brooks Koepka are obviously spurning LIV Golf in a like kind, but like I'm out of here nature. And the likes of Luke Clanton and other people who will have received some sort of offer are not taking it. And so that is a different momentum than we saw in 2022 and 2023. And so like, I'm trying to think about this most logically without telling LIV Golf that they're dead in the water. I just think that the most likely outcome is they have 3 more years. You have the extent of Jon Rahm's contract, and you have the extent of like Sergio, Dustin Johnson contracts that have been extended, and probably Phil, like these contracts that are the lifeblood of what built this league up are coming due. And, you know, I think there's a little bit too much made out of connecting the life of this golf league to like the overall profitability of the PIF and like the price of oil. Like still a pretty small potatoes in their grand scheme of things. But, you know, losses continue to pile up. Scott O'Neill literally told the Financial Times that the league would not be profitable for probably the next decade. Like red everywhere. Tells me that the most likely scenario is let's give it 3 years. But we are way too smart, or frankly, maybe way too dumb, that like this thing has surprised us before. It has surprised us in the past. And yeah, but like, let's not be dumb about the fact that all the momentum is moving in a different direction.
It is. And the thing that I think is made there's too much is made of is like, oh, well, if Bryson leaves, that's it. They're gonna shut the doors. And it's like, I understand the logic behind that, but also I think, well, one, somebody pointed this out on Twitter, I forgot who, they're not going to shut the doors unless the PIF stops giving them money. Like that's not,
Correct.
like everybody has jobs and they're going to keep doing those jobs and whatever. But two, I also think there's this like, and I don't know if this was their intention, but there's become this global aspect to it that's a little Euro Tour-ish, where it's like, hey, we're the global tour of record, of note. And I don't know so to me, the most likely outcome, and I don't know what this would look like, is some sort of absorption, partnership, something with the Euro Tour to where, okay, maybe now the Euro Tour, instead of going to Turkey, it goes to Adelaide, or instead of going to Portugal, it goes to, I don't know where else, Hong Kong, right? Maybe the Euro Tour already goes there. I don't think they do, but that to me is interesting because there's clearly between the Euro Tour and LIV like a congeniality that there is not been. I don't know if congeniality is the right word, but there's been a relationship that the PGA Tour and LIV have not had.
Correct.
And so I do wonder if there's some sort of like, okay, we're both a global tour. Let's like just combine forces and because I go back to this New Yorker article from 2018 or 19, and like all the PIF wanted was just to have an investment in golf. They don't want to start a league.
Well, and have they done that? Yeah, they absolutely have. Like the creation of LIV Golf has been a roller coaster, but it got Yasser in the White House. It got Yasser the presence of Donald Trump, Tiger Woods, and John Henry, right? One of the richest billionaires in all of sports. That's in its own world rabid success, like incredible success. And so it's so like it is really wrong to look at LIV Golf through only one lens. It has always been this extremely complex 360-degree thing. The problem is that like the players like Bryson were often telling us to look at it through only one lens. Like it was always so much bigger than that. And if we go back to what we were talking about in, let's say, February 2022, we were talking about sports washing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to look at it, it was like golf was an entryway for PIF to buy up the tennis rankings. You go and look at the tennis players we were just talking about, they are in the PIF ATP rankings. That's the name of the rankings. The PIF sponsors a ton in tennis and in F1, and like golf was a real big avenue to help it continue to do that. And so like when I say that I forecast like 3 more years of existence for it, that's not to say that it would be a failure. That's kind of the point.
Yeah, which I think is yes, because people see $5 billion, and like I'm one of the people that talks about this $5 billion down the drain, but they have gotten probably more out of it than what's on the P&L, right? Than what's on the spreadsheet.
Well, it's so funny. They had incredible consultants working on their behalf. They created this thing called Project Wedge. And Project Wedge was to try to create a golf league. And none of it was written in like red ink. Like we're also trying to like procure investments and status in the Western world. But that was all part of it. And those consultants could not have necessarily dreamed that Yasser would be with John Henry and Tiger Woods and Donald Trump in the White House. So like at some point we still got to look back at that, and it's not this A or B thing. It is the entire alphabet.
Well, it's also a little bit like how you take somebody like a Farmers or a Century or Waste Management, like they don't. And this is very convoluted, I realize, and I probably don't know enough about it to be saying this, but you see their name on the golf tournament, and you think, wow, like how are they making money off this? Well, a lot of times, like the reason that companies sponsor a tournament is not for like what's on the front door, right? It's to bring in client, like let's say it costs $30 million to sponsor the Phoenix Open. I don't know what it is. That's probably like in the ballpark. It's to bring in a client that's going to make you $50 million over the next 10 years, right? To treat them to this like VIP. That's one of like 10 reasons that you might sponsor a golf tournament. So I don't think it's as I think that's like a pretty good business model, or has been for a lot of these companies over the years. I don't know that what the PIF is doing is a great business model, but it's just, my point is like those two are a little bit connected in that there's other reasons to start a golf league or to get into golf other than just how much money did Live Dallas or Live Tucson make.
Yeah, and we started this conversation talking about like the nitty gritty that I can be like really interested in. Like, I'm so interested in the financials of this stuff. You know, the PGA Tour strategic alliance with the European Tour is worth $115 million last year. Like, that's not forever. That's not guaranteed into the 2030s. And we're on that side of things with the calendar now. Like, your point about could there be a conglomerate born of Live and the DP World Tour is extremely real. I don't know. It's plausible, but I don't know if I have anything to say beyond like there could be very fun future in this stuff that like we can't even really predict right now, because that's where it's been so far.
As long as Phil remains involved, there will be a fun future. Okay, last one. I've kept you too long, Sean. I'm going to give you 10 players. I want you to tell me how many majors they're going to end their career with.
Yeah. Gosh, you're going to...
We'll do this fairly quickly. Actually, I think I have 11 people on here. We'll do this fairly quickly because we could do probably 3 hours just on these 11 guys alone. Justin Rose.
1.
He would be among the best one major winners ever.
Yeah, some of these answers are going to hurt me to say them out loud, and I'm probably going to come across as maybe too conservative. But some people that play this game are way too aggressive. Let's say that.
Well, I told Jason last week, I always go under. I mean, I don't. We were talking about Scotty, and the number was 10, and I said under. Like, no, under.
And I go over. I'm a dreamer, baby. I'm just why not?
Jason thinks there's 10 majors a year. Rory McIlroy.
I'm going to give him 8. I'm bullish.
Wow.
I'm bullish on his next 10 years delivering 3. And that's tough. Like, I should go under. I should say 7. I should say 6. I should say 6 before I say 8. But I think he's the smartest he's ever been when it comes to playing golf tournaments. And I think he won at Pebble for a reason, and he wins at Sawgrass for a reason in Augusta, and also like the Irish Open. So,
I mean, Justin Rose has been toe to toe with him from a lot of the tournaments. What makes you put Rory in that bucket and not Justin?
Good question. I would say it's the tournaments in between, because like Rosie's been really good in some incredible spots, very specific spots. And I mean, he's obviously very close. Was he 45 now?
Mm-hmm.
He is doing some age defying things. But the theoretical cliff, the theoretical cliff for him could be 6 months from now. That's, I think, the only reason why. But you're right. That's a very good question, Jason. It's like, oh, you're going to give Rory 3 and Justin Rose none.
Well, it's also like much longer runway for sure. I would give Rory 6. Again, Phil's career. I think he's just having it. It looks a lot different, but it's going to end up the same. Hideki Matsuyama.
Just 1 for Hideki.
Okay.
Yeah. I like, anytime that I'm not giving anybody any more it's going to sound harsh, but like, I think Hideki won the Masters during a very tight peak in his life. I think he won the Masters because Xander pulled the wrong club on 16. And I think he won the Masters during your favorite Masters when there was a very limited crowd there.
Okay. Let's not get too deep on that. I just say it was very enjoyable. The Hideki, Rose, Adam Scott, not Xander. Hideki, Rose, Adam Scott, Sergio, somebody like a Victor Hovland. I think they're really interesting because you think about like one's a lot, but they're all like 1.5 guys where you're like, if they had 2, their career would kind of make more sense. But 1 is, it's almost like 2. It's weird. Like they're all in like that weird, not quite Rahm, Rory, Phil, Scotty type tier.
Yeah.
They're just below it, and the max is like kind of 2.
Yeah, where you would have given 10 years ago today. So let's say the beginning of 2016, fresh off of a 2015 Players Championship. I think it was that year. And at 2014, him finishing in the top 5 of all majors. You'd have given Ricky Fowler at least 1, maybe 2.
Yeah.
Right? That's why this game is tough.
It is.
It's a fun game, though.
Okay, Scotty.
I'm giving Scotty 8. And that means 4 more. And I actually think that's on the low side if you polled Golf Media. I do that because I think there has to be he has to stop at some point. There has to be some sort of cliff. He has done this while having children, adding to his family. He's done this while there's been weird things that have happened off the golf course to him. He has done this while Live Golf has existed and during, probably the peak at one point of Jon Rahm's life and Bryson DeChambeau's golf. And he continues to do it. But like at some point it has to stop. And 4 more majors would still be an amazing career to add on to this current one. So I'll give him 8. Where are you at with Scotty?
Yeah, 8 or 9, I think, which is, I mean, Tom Watson's 8, who's 9. I think Gary Player's 9. It's crazy. Like 9 is so many. 9 is Brooks and Ernie Els.
What I really like about what Scotty has done is he has completely redefined, I think, the peaks of like Collin Morikawa and redefined the peak of Jason Day, which was extremely high, and even Spieth, which was 3 majors and a bunch of wins. Like Scotty redefined what that all means because all of those dudes like really kind of reached a certain level, and you can find it on the Data Golf page, and they stayed there, and then they dropped off. And all of that within roughly like 36 months. And so like Scotty's probably going on month 48 at this point or something like that. Like,
and LKD brought this up. I think I don't know if it's the key, but I think one reason that has been the case is because his short game is extraordinary. Like he gets a lot of credit, deservedly so, for the iron play, and driver's been obviously very good and putter's gotten better, but his short game just, it keeps him in everything. I mean, I think it's underrated. It's super impressive. Okay. Bryson, who's at 2 right now?
I give Bryson 4. I think Bryson gets 2 more because of the lunatic that he can be in a good way. He's come very close to winning the PGA Championship. He's gotten so much better at the Masters. He has not figured out links golf. So I'm not expecting him to win an Open, but I am expecting him to at some point pick off both a Masters and a PGA. And that's pretty high, but also don't want to bet against that because he also seems like he could do it both within the same 6-week span. Like could he not win the Masters this year and then go to Aronimink and win there too?
Yeah, I think I picked him to win the PGA this year. He's been awesome at PGAs. I would say, what is Bryson, 31, 30, 32?
31, I believe.
Yeah, 4 is a really good number. I was going to say 3 or 4. I'll go 4 also. Jon Rahm, who's also got 2 right now.
He's 32.
I give John 32.
Not that changed anything.
Oh, now I should edit him down to 3. I give Rahm the same amount as Bryson. I give him 4 because I think I believe that like if we're talking about talent and your ability to win in big tournaments, like I think he really is as good as Rory in that stuff. So it would feel wrong if he ended up with less than 4. 'Cause I just think he should be a generational type European player.
Yeah, 5 for me. I'm all the
You're
way
in. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, all the way.
There needs to be more people on the Jon Rahm block, and he's done it to himself, but
yeah, I think he's just generationally good, and people are kind of like, I don't know, maybe it's because he gets angry or he's on live, or I don't know. I don't know what the reason, but
I think it's both.
Yeah, how much do you think that those extra years cost Rahm in terms of his major eligibility or chances to win?
You mean on live?
No, well, chance to win majors, yeah. Like his time
I think
on live, yeah.
One thing that's interesting, he had a bad major year in the year before he went to live. or maybe 2 years before. And then he bounced, I think it was 2 years before, then he bounced back to win the Masters and then went to live. So he hasn't been as consistent at the majors as maybe somebody like a Rory. Yeah, I think it's affected him. I mean, I think you saw that at the PGA at Quail Hollow last year, where he was like, "Oh, this is the most fun I've had on a Sunday in a long time," and you're like, "It's not a quote I love hearing." You know,
Appreciate the honesty.
So yes, maybe. Well, who knows? Like he could end up back on the PGA Tour by the end of the year. But I think it's stolen at least like one or two contentions from him over the last 2 years. Okay, Ludwig.
I out of sheer respect for his skill set, I gave Ludwig 1. You know, he's still ultimately like not. It's not like he's a 22-year-old talent. Like so if he didn't win one in the next 3 years, that's when we would start to be like, you're way too good to not have won one. But you wouldn't really necessarily bet against that happening. So I give him 1. It's probably low, but he's also working through some stuff right now that doesn't feel like the Ludwig that we know. And has he contended all that? Well, you know, he contended at the U.S. Open at Pinehurst and he contended at the Masters.
Sort of at the U.S. Open.
Yeah. And so I give him credit for that. But what part of him feels like a killer? And I think you need to be a little bit of a killer to do that.
Yeah, there's a little it's a little Jason Day, you know, where it's like, hey, really good at golf. But I mean, you know, Day's another guy in the Adam Scott. It was a little Adam Scott, honestly. Like one major, great career. I think
tall,
one
handsome.
is tall, great, good looking. My wife's interested. All that stuff.
But also
okay,
win a little bit more. Wait, what does he want?
Well, he hasn't. I mean, I'm with you. I don't know how many events he's actually played as a pro. He didn't turn pro until he was like 24 and a half or something.
Yeah.
So what does he have under his belt, Jason? Like 65?
He's 26 years old. And how many pro events he's played?
Yeah. I would say it's like 60, 70, 80. I mean, granted, Scotty was 0 for his first 70, and we were saying probably some of these same things about him, and that's turned out pretty good. But
yeah, gosh, if you put everyone through that lens, everyone could be a Scotty. But
well, Scotty and Spieth, I've been talking about this, are such outliers in that there's never really been anybody like Scotty who couldn't win, and then won 20 out of his next 80. Like basically won 25% of the time. There's never been anybody like Spieth who won 2 majors at 21, 3 by 25, and then just like didn't really win again. Like those two are very like historically weird outliers for golf. And so I think when we talk about guys like that, it's like, I don't really know what to do with this guy because there hasn't ever been, at least not recently, anybody like him.
Yeah, I'm very worried about the names at the end of this list because of
Okay,
what you
Jason,
just said.
What was our Ludwig start count?
I mean, I have a stat of him in April 2025. He was up to 42, so that's got to be, I don't know, up in the closer to the 60s
so
by now. Yeah,
60 or so.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we at? Tommy Fleetwood.
All right, now I'm saying this exclusively out of fear of saying 0. I'm going to say 1. I think it's entirely plausible that he doesn't do it. And because they're hard to win, and because he hasn't done it yet, and because he doesn't actually have, like, he has a game to, I think, to last in the Justin Rose sense, but he doesn't necessarily have the game to overpower in the Bryson sense. And I think Bryson overpowered Winged Foot, and he powered enough at Pinehurst to win out there. And so like I don't think you will ever look at a major host or a course and be like, I think Tommy Fleetwood's going to win that one, because he just has this classic game that I worry will not do it. But I'll give him 1 because I really like the man, as discussed.
Yeah. I mean, he's not super young. I mean, he's 34, 35.
Just turned 35.
But I think that if I could pick one player to win one major, it would either be Justin Rose or Tommy Fleetwood to win the Open. Now that Rory's won the Masters, I think it's Tommy or Rose to win the Open would be
the anxiousness I will feel in like the 10 minutes prior to Tommy's first tee shot at Birkdale this year.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be so high for someone who's not involved.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. If we got like really prescriptive with things, you'd want Tommy to win there. If not him, probably Rose.
Totally. Okay, Xander.
I am such a believer in him and his approach.
You love Xander.
Yeah. Some absolute biases at play here, but I'm giving Xander 2 more. Giving Xander 4 total. And I think in large part because of what he was, still so much recency bias there, but 2024 was he had just risen to such a level of consistency that he was everywhere. He could very easily end up with 2 and no one would bat an eye and he would still be in the World Golf Hall of Fame. But call me a believer.
I actually picked him to win the Masters this year. He's 32 years old. 4's pretty good. I'll say 3. I think he gets at least.
Yeah,
at least
Xander as a Masters champ would be a lot of fun. I think.
Yeah.
He would give it an incredibly
great there.
Yeah, and he would give great, honest press conferences like all throughout. He would have a great menu of some like Japanese inspired California stuff. Like he would be good. He would go to New York and do the whole thing.
Okay, last 2. Victor Hovland.
I'm giving Vic 1. I think there's too much about his career that has been, holy hell, you're a different type of talent. Winning at Pebble in the USAM and just kind of like his highest moments are so high that and again, kind of like Bryson, just enough of a lunatic chasing after things that it'll all coalesce into a victory at some point.
Yeah, I agree with 1 for Victor. And then our beautiful boy, Jordan Spieth, who is potentially forever stuck at 3.
That sucks to say because he is endlessly one of the most entertaining golfers that I think will ever play on our televisions. You want him to do well, but it's not adding up. It's just not. And it's not like he has the volatile game where it's like, man, you're the top 10 putter one season and you're 70th the next season. You're one of the best ball strikers in the world one season. You can't really hit it straight the next season. Like he is the roller coaster.
Yeah, Jason actually made a roller coaster illustration of him for our first book. So he is for sure the roller coaster. But he did a video with Dylan Teixeira, your coworker, golf.com. What's the series called?
Warming Up.
It's on YouTube. Watch parts of it. And when he started talking about smoking meats and how his game compares to smoking meats, you're like, I don't know if that's it, man. I mean, the case for Spieth is like, he's not going to be the number 1 player in the world again. I think that's pretty obvious. I think he can still win an Open Championship. And I think that is, even through all his struggles, like he's been really good at the Open. He obviously won in 2017, T9, T20, 2, T8, T23, T2. He's always in the top 25.
Damn, that's actually sneaky impressive.
It's really good because he's kind of sucked for most of those years, especially like 18, 19, 20, 21. I guess he started getting a little better in 21. But
if Colin Morikawa doesn't play so well without fans at the Open in 21, I mean, that's Spieth's win too.
Totally. And so I think that's the case for him to get to, I'm going to say 4 just because I want to believe in something. And I think it comes at the Open. People always cite Augusta as his place, and he's been awesome there. But I think it's actually the Open where he has the best chance of getting his 4th. It would have been crazy if Rory and Spieth ended up with the same number of majors.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen now, but that would have been wild.
And well, he comes back to Birkdale this year. we go to St. Andrews again somehow next year, like there could be a lot of lovey-dovey Spieth stuff happening in the next 18 months.
We're ready for it.
I would love that.
We are so ready.
Okay, Jason, what do you got? What did we mess up? What did we miss? Any questions that you jotted down?
I know I had questions a little bit about Bryson's future value, but I feel like that's another 2-hour podcast. We're going to have to run it back and
Future value like on Live?
No, like his future value as a YouTuber. I was wondering, like, because he talks about just switching to YouTube golf and then maybe not playing professionally so much. But
James wrote about this.
I would love to jump in on this because I literally wrote about it yesterday. So this would just tease that. So in July, I went from Portrush and I was going to go take a little personal vacation in the south of France. But on the way to south of France, I stopped in Manchester area to go to Liv's event in England for a couple days. And so I walked a couple holes with Bryson in a practice round. And I wanted to ask him some questions about YouTube, you know, why John Rahm was counseling with him about should he start his own account, whatever. And it turned into like a marketability, media rights, value, literally that word that you just used, question and conversation. And he I think at this point in his life is really focused on trying to become the next Arnold Palmer, trying to have his YouTube digital streaming life do something in the sport for popularity that will be thought of in hindsight as Arnie's Army, right? Bryson's Brigade or whatever. And I think he's really focused on that. He told me that he's like, I view like marketability as like an ancillary benefit to forcing value, or like if I can bring value to the space, I will become more marketable, rather than I think the inverse, which is all a lot of guys think of it, is like, my value is playing good golf at golf tournaments. That's what makes me marketable. I'm going to pair up with brands that will market me, rather than Bryson, who is like, no, like I'm going to try to create something that in the same way Arnold Palmer created Golf Channel. And so I haven't like tweeted it out. It got published yesterday, but there's a conversation from 7 months ago that I think was predictive of like where he sees himself right now. And so it's a fascinating conversation, and I feel more confident. Still, I think unlikely that he will play like YouTube golf exclusively, maybe in 2027.
Well, I think look, like he takes a lot of crap for that, right? And I think some of it is funny and like in whatever. But in a lot of ways, it's sort of like I have done some of the same things that he is trying to do in my own career, right? Like if you're Colin Morikawa and the PGA Tour collapses and there's no more PGA, this isn't going to happen. But what do you do?
What do you got? What are you holding on to?
And so like leaving a place like CBS Sports, which, you know, fairly stable, but like if that goes away, like, well, okay, what do you do now? And so what Bryson is doing, it's not, people think of it like, okay, YouTube golf and professional golf, they're like kind of the same. They're like different industry. They're like completely different verticals. It would be like if you were like a waiter at a restaurant and then you like owned a steakhouse. Like they're not even close to the same, right? And I'm so impressed that he's able to do both at such a high level. Like he's a great YouTuber. Like whether you whether it's for you or not, I think it's undeniable that he's really good at it. And he's a great golfer. He's won 2 majors. He's top 15 in the world, even though he didn't get world ranking points. So I'm just super impressed by that. And I do, there's a lot of reasons to dislike Brad. I actually personally have enjoyed, like, I like him. I think he's fairly normal in person and like just kind of a nice guy or whatever. But I think that I just am so, I think what he's doing deserves maybe more credit. That it gets dumped on a lot, and I think it deserves more credit than it sometimes gets.
Well, and I think that was something he didn't say that literally to me, but I was asking him, we were talking a little bit about media rights, and he's just like, I just wish people would call me, which sounded like really lonely. And I know he's not lonely. He has a staff of 10 people working on his content. But what he means is like, hey, if we're ever going to bring, YouTube creation to the practice rounds of the PGA Tour, that would be something that like Brian Rolapp should probably call me about. Mm-hmm. Or if you could create legitimate content from Tuesday at Shinnecock this summer, like Mike Whan should be interested in hearing what Bryson thinks about it. Now, Mike Whan probably knows what Bryson thinks, but Bryson certainly knows stuff that he hasn't shared publicly. And Bryson wants people to call him when it comes to media rights. And like, what I think is interesting about that is like Phil Mickelson also wanted that, and he ended up creating Live Golf. I think Bryson is trying to be a lot more neutral in his future and not be so black and white about it. And that's why I think what he's doing right now is just, it could be one big negotiating tactic, but it's also just a bit of a window into him having a wider view than JJ Spawn has, for instance.
Yeah. And more maneuverability as a big time name and very famous person. So, okay, Sean, this was awesome. Thank you for the insight. I told LKD this, I think, when he was on, and James Colgan, who's works with you at golf.com. But I like talking just because we're friends, but I also always learn stuff. And it's a ton of fun. So appreciate you engaging with my insane questions about tennis and golf and everything else. And we'll have to do it again.
Absolutely. Thank you, boys. We'll see you soon. All right.